Okay, so bear with me. I am sick right now, so my voice is not in the best shape, but I will try to speak as clearly and loudly as I can. I'm kind of sick right now, so that's why I might sound a little quiet. But for my white paper, I'm going to be writing about how the exchange rate in the United States affects the U.S. businesses, both globally and inside the United States. Now, recently I did a slideshow project in macroeconomics that was related on a similar topic, except on that slideshow, I was just talking about how the exchange rate affects the government. And for this project, I will be looking more into how the exchange rate is going to affect the US businesses. So I tried to differ it from that project I just did, so I wasn't just doing the same project again. Um, so it's going to require a lot more research into all the exchange rates between several countries, which I'm just going to pick the largest ones that are traded with the United States globally rather than looking at the entire world, because that would be a lot of exchange rates to compare. But one of the most important things is that the United States utilizes an exchange rate of volatility, which means that their exchange rate is floating a lot of the time rather than just a fixed exchange rate, which is what a lot of countries utilize. So, because of this volatility in the United States for their exchange rate, it can create a lot of unnecessary business risks for corporations. And what I'm going to be talking about in this paper is, due to that volatility, what can U.S. corporations do and U.S. businesses do to try to limit the risk and the effect of this volatile exchange rate on their businesses? So, the main strategies I'm talking about with how U.S. businesses can incorporate strategies to help limit risk is through things like corporate hedging, operational adjustments, and strategic planning. So utilizing these three main um, strategies is what is going to help these United States businesses to be able to stay afloat in such a volatile market, and how they can actually use it to their benefit rather than hurt from it. So basically, what the volatility of the exchange rate in the United States means is that their exchange rate is floating. So if they were to exchange with Canada in 2025, it might be like $1 to 1.5 Canadian dollars. But in 2026, that can change very drastically to like $2 instead of $1. So basically, nothing is ever set and it's always changing. And due to this very high risk scenario, it can really affect US businesses if they're having to change prices all the time. And if you change prices a lot, not due just to supply, if you're changing it due to macroeconomic conditions, it can really affect the customer output you get. So the first strategy that that the corporations can utilize is corporate hedging, which basically what that does is it provides a safeguard against the volatility. So I researched several studies that explain how corporations use hedge funds to try to balance against this volatility in the U.S. exchange rate. So what the main thing it does is it reduces their tax liability, and it reduces cost from their financial distress that they will undoubtedly get from this volatile exchange rate. So, so how companies specifically use corporate hedging is through several things. One being forward contracts, which would be an agreement to buy or sell a product at a set price. So, due to these agreements, if they were to buy a product in 2025 in January, they would be able to buy that same product for the same price in January of the next year. So this can create more stability in the market where normally prices would be fluctuating a lot. And right now, obviously, we're seeing a lot of price changes due to the war that we're experiencing. But utilizing things like forward contracts and other types of hedging just is able to limit the risk. And then there's also things that they implement, as such as strategic planning and some corporate strategies that they can implement. So one of the corporate strategies would be natural hedging, which is a little different than normal hedging, since what natural hedging does is just, it's very basic. What it basically means is just to use the currency of the country that you operate out of. So for US businesses, that just means using the US dollar. So even though that is a very volatile dollar, it is one of the strongest currencies in the world, and it's kind of the standard right now for international business. But for a company that would be outside of the US, for them it would just basically be using the country that they reside in. It would be using their currency rather than trying to just use the US dollar everywhere. So what an international company operating outside of the US and inside of the US could do is pay their employees. Let's say they have offshore factories in Taiwan. They would then just pay their employees in Taiwan dollars. So that's basically what I'm going to be talking about for most of my paper, just the different types of strategies that corporations implement into the market to try to limit their risk and profit off of the US exchange rate being so volatile. Because while it is volatile, it's not always the worst thing since it allows for growth and sometimes. But if you're just relying on the US dollar growing, there is a certain amount of risk that can go with that since it's not always guaranteed to rise. So, doing things like natural hedging, corporate hedging, and just a lot of their operational strategies and a lot of their strategic planning will just help to limit these risks overall.